We're on. Cool. All right, welcome. Very excited for this. Very excited to chat to my guest today. I'm really honored, and also it's really grateful for you to come on here and spend your time and tell us about what you're doing. And welcome, Sohee Carpenter, from Sohee Fit. Is this still Sohee Fit, isn't it? Yeah. So
yes.
it's still the same process. And she's going to take us through today, and we're going to have a discussion around how she runs her business side of stuff and how that's grown over the time period that she's been doing it, but also the involvement of like Apotheo and how that works as well in there. So it'd be really cool. But thank you. And in terms of, we were just chatting before about how life is for you, crazy at the moment. So what's the stuff going on with the business?
There's always something. I feel like anytime life slows down, you add something else back in. So then the level of busyness stays the same, and then you keep filling it with other stuff. But yeah, it's just how it is.
Yeah. Have you always been like that? Have you always had things like this driving for these things?
Every time yes, I would say ever since I started my business, which was 11 years ago, I've always been probably similarly busy in some capacity. And when it slows down, even though I like the idea of having a more tranquil life, then I get bored.
Yeah.
So that's what happened to me 4 years into coaching. And then that's when I went back to grad school because I wanted something more. And then it's just been, but I really love what I do. So it's fun. It's really enjoyable. But at the same time, obviously there are moments when it gets really stressful, and then I want it to be quieter. And then when it is quieter, I want it to be more,
Amazing. And we'll get into some of the things that you're doing at the moment, because some of it sounds really, really exciting as well around the PhD and everything. But I just wanted to go back to at the start point of when you started to get into this, and especially with like the Apotheo side, because I think Adam was telling me in the emails that we were having exchanged that about the almost like the test version was based on to help you out with things that you were planning to do. Is that right?
So I was basically his first ever client, I guess, or his first ever customer. So Adam and I know each other. We go back probably to 2008 or 2009. A long time. So we knew each other from online fitness forums and whatnot. And then I started coaching online clients myself in 2012. And then I think the next year or the year after that, Adam actually hired me as his coach for a few months. And it was during that time we started talking about what features I was wanting, because I was doing everything via email at that point. And I think in that era, that was actually the norm. I didn't really question it because that's what everyone was doing. Because I had worked with different coaches myself as a client in the past, and I knew that everyone else was using emails, like Word documents, PDFs, sending it back and forth. Even your check-ins, you would either send an email or you'd fill out a Word document and then attach it into your email, and kind of do it like that. And so I didn't really think anything of it, but it was getting to the point where I was, my client roster was growing. It was a lot of many clients, and I was having a hard time keeping track of their information. And so I was starting to get frustrated with the lack of efficiency with my systems, and I was ready for the next steps. And then we just got to talking, and he was like, okay, so if you wanted to have a portal of sorts, what would you want to have? And that, and then of course, by then I had been coaching for a few years. So I had a very good idea of this is what I need. And then I think over the course of a few months, he started building it up, and then we transferred everyone over to the portals, and that's where I've been ever since.
Amazing. Amazing to think that the software that it is now was built off the back of what you were doing. So quite cool.
Yeah, but it makes sense, right? Because Adam himself, he was never a coach. I was the coach, right? So he has the skill set to build everything on the back end, and I have the vision of what I want. So it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's turned into what it is. So amazing. I love the story as well. It's great. In terms of the type of coaching that you do, what does that involve? Or how does your business run as such? Because I know you were saying that you have coaches now as well. So.
Yeah, so for coaching specifically, because I've got a lot of different, I guess, sectors of my business. For coaching specifically, I have not taken on new clients in years and years and years. So initially I was the only one, the only coach in my business. That's usually how it starts. And I think at my peak, I had something like 96 coaching clients myself. And that's when I was doing basically only coaching, and that was my sole revenue stream. I've since obviously moved past that by quite a bit. But I got to the point where I was kind of my demand was very high. I wasn't able to keep up, which is great. But at the same time, I was starting to change. What I wanted was changing, like how I want to spend my time was changing. So I was like, I'm not sure if I want to spend so much time working with one-on-one clients anymore, but I love educating. I love creating content, and I'm happy to mentor other coaches. And so now I have a couple of coaches who work under me, under my brand, like under the umbrella of my brand. And so people will sign up with them, and then they are the ones using the portal primarily. But then, of course, I have access to all of their clients, all their client information, all the communication. So another change we made about 2 years ago was for a while, I was allowing coaches to communicate with their clients via email still, or via WhatsApp or other platforms. I said, whatever is convenient for you guys, whatever system you figure out. But then there were XYZ events happened where I said, it's actually better if I'm able to oversee all your communications. So even if, for example, like one coach goes on vacation and another coach temporarily steps in and takes over their clients, they still need to be able to see their prior communications to know what's going on. And so that's when we made a decision to have all the communications taking place in the portal. So we use the messaging feature in the portal. So no matter who is overseeing the communications, we always know what's going on with the client. So that was a nice change that we made. And so I can always see at any time point, who's got a check-in coming up, who's missed a check-in, who's late on responding to a client, which doesn't really happen, but it's nice for me to know that there's that option to see who has a training program due coming up, all those things. So I can do that without having to be like, hey, can you forward me your email exchange with this client from these past dates? And which is what we used to have to do in the past. And so it ends up being a very streamlined, efficient system now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so in terms of, you've got the coaches who are involved with the running of that, but then you're very much still involved in overseeing everything, right? So you're still in there.
Yeah. Very.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to find out when you mentioned when it was just you and you had like 96 clients.
That was a lot.
How are you managing that?
Well, I would say I'm a pretty efficient worker. But again, that was like basically the primary thing I was doing that was making money at the time. Yeah. So it was like more or less one revenue stream at the time point. So I was spending several hours per day. But what I would do is, I don't know when I made the switch, but there was a certain point when I switched to everyone's check-ins are due, I think over the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then everyone knew I start responding to them Monday and Tuesday, but I respond to them in the order in which they come in. So basically people are incentivized to actually get your check-ins on time. So that way, get your check-in on time, you hear back from me sooner. So I would say Mondays and Tuesdays are the days I respond to people check-ins. Of course, they're still allowed to message me as much as they want outside of the formal check-ins, because the check-ins are just when they fill out, this is back when I was doing lots of progress pictures, body circumference measurements, body weight, fill out your dietary. It was pretty labor intensive, even on the client's part. So those thorough check-ins, I would only have them do every other week because it was so much work on their part. But then in between those check-ins, they can message me as much as they need to. And then with those messages, I would get back to them within one business day. So pretty fast. So I would basically devote a few hours first thing in the morning, responding to check-ins and messages from clients. Then I would do my own thing where I would post on social media or do my own workout or something. And then in the evening before I sign off, I'd spend another few hours responding to anything else that had come in since the morning, basically. Yeah. So it's actually a really good system and it works really well. But it was just getting to feel like a lot. And, honestly, at a certain point, you have too many clients, you start forgetting who's who. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's obviously not a good sign because I want to have a close relationship with my clients. And as soon as I hear a name, I want to be like, oh yeah, that's the person who XYZ. And I know all about them off the top of my head. And after a certain point, you kind of, at least for me, I was not able to do that with all of my clients. So,
but that's full on. definitely in terms of especially the level of that you would go into with our clients as well. And I was going to ask you about that because I don't know if Adam told me or maybe I'd heard it somewhere about you doing that 2-week period where you have the more in-depth ones, which is really cool because you speak to most coaches and they like do weekly check-ins, right? And it's like every week. But what are your thoughts on that in terms of, is that needed or how?
So I have never done weekly check-ins with clients ever. And even I have worked with coaches way in the past where as a client, they wanted me to check in every single week. Yeah. And even then it felt excessive because again, every check-in takes time on my part. And especially if they're a coach who requires progress photos every single week, I'm like, I'm not doing this every week. Also, as a fitness professional, I know that you're not going to see a lot of changes in 1 week's time.
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm like, just send me a message at the 1 week mark. Just tell me how things are going, what you're struggling with, XYZ. That way it's less work on your side. And on my side too, I'm not like going to be this doing the like, well, it's only been 1 week, so let's wait another week. Cause that's what I would say anyway.
Yeah.
It's only been 1 week. Because I'm a huge proponent of sustainable changes, of course. And that means that any progress you want to make, whatever progress means to the individual, is going to take time, which means 1 week is not enough time for me to know what's happening. Hence every other week. And honestly, even every other week, and if you have a lot going on in your life, which everyone does, even every other week, it comes by really fast. And you're like, oh, shoot, it's already time for my next check-in. Okay, I guess I'm going to sit down and take 15, 20 minutes or whatever to fill out. And if I'm asking someone to do that every week, I would be like, hey, can we just do every other week? Because this is a lot for me. Yeah. And I don't like, I, as a client, everyone has different needs. I've never been super high maintenance as a client. I'm actually pretty low maintenance as a client, where I just need you, if I hire you as a coach, I just need the accountability and the plan so that I don't have to think about it myself. And if that's the case, I can just touch base with you once every other week or even once a month. And I'm like, I'm fine. Here's the progress. Okay, bye. Yeah. See you later. But different coaches have different systems. And it's worked really well for us to do every other week.
Yeah. And I think it's a great thing to see in terms of being flexible. Like, don't feel like you need to have, like everyone else is doing weekly check-ins, I must do weekly check-ins. Like, work with your clients and how they want to get feedback.
Right. Yeah. But we emphasize too, of course, just because your check-ins are every other week doesn't mean you're only allowed to talk to us once every 2 weeks. Yeah. Because I feel like, and I wonder too, if when people do the weekly check-ins, if they then think, oh, I have to save all my thoughts and my questions for the check-in. Yeah. Whereas we're like, no, message us as much as you want. Some people message almost every day, and then we still get back to you almost every day. You know what I mean? Like within a turnaround. But especially because the check-ins too, they require, at least the way that in my head, they always required more extra focus, because it's not just a quick message. I have to look over everything and then decide, okay, do I make any changes to your programming? And if so, what are the changes? But then at the same time, of course, choosing to keep variables the same is also still an update, right? For the client, where we say, okay, we're going to keep doing this, because sometimes the best change is no change at all. And that's what they're hiring you for, is to know when to make changes versus when to not. And that, again, I like, if it's 1 week, I'm like, I don't know. It's not enough time for me to know. So that's what we do.
And would you give that written feedback, or do you use video? How did you
do that? So initially for the first several years, we did exclusively written feedback, exclusively written communication. And it's only about, I want to say 3 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, that we started offering Zoom call, like video calls, as an option at all. And now, especially, a lot of it is learning as you go, right? So the way I do things now as a coach is very different from how I did things 11 years ago. And that's how it should be, because you're supposed to be always learning and growing. But now I'm a huge proponent of get them on a Zoom call as soon as you can, at least the first call, because it's a huge part of establishing rapport with your client. Right. And they might say things in passing and you're able to read between the lines, or you pick up on their body language, or at least you have a vibe going, and then you feel more connected, or they feel more connected to you. as a coach. So then they're more willing to like open up and more willing to trust you and XYZ. And then we also give clients the option to book a video call with their written check-ins every other week or in lieu of. So we can say, you can either do written check-in only, written check-in plus a quick video call, or only video calls and no, because some people don't care they don't like to write. They'd rather just do this. And if they only want to do video calls every other week, that's fine. And then I'll just have the coaches take notes in the client's account in the portal every time. So again, anyone can step in at any moment and know what's going on with the client.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So we give them options.
Yeah, totally making it completely flexible, but also evolving it out of as the process has changed over years. So yeah, it's great. And then in terms of the growth then of that, since when it was just you and now you've got, is it 2 coaches you've got now? So
I've got 2 right now. We fluctuate, but right now we're at 2. We're about to have 3, but it's always kind of moving up and down. But I like to keep my roster of coaches pretty small so that I can continue to oversee everyone and maintain, like, the quality control is very important to me.
Yeah.
So we have fewer rather than more coaches.
Yeah. And I just, again, quite interested in how do you find those coaches? How do you get the right people?
It's really tough. It's tough because this is what I've learned. You want to find someone who obviously is familiar with your brand and your message and aligns with your values and your message, but also wants to be a coach on a team rather than I want to be in my own spotlight doing my own thing.
Yeah.
But also cares about continuing education to the extent that we do, because it's a huge part of my brand is like always learning and always investing time into like reading the latest research, attending guest lectures, attending events, things like that. But also is a personality fit with the rest of the team, because we are a very small team. If one person's butting heads, that creates stress for everyone on the team. And then it's not fun for me. So it's very hard. And nowadays I have become extremely slow to hire new people because of that.
Yeah.
And so even if you followed me for a long time and you have the credentials and XYZ, doesn't mean I'm going to hire you. In fact, I probably need to know you for like at least a year, maybe 2 years before I even consider like, okay, are you a good fit? But also another thing we're realizing too is online coaching. A lot of people like the idea of online coaching, but they hate working from home. Yeah, or maybe they like the idea of working from home, but they struggle with setting the boundary with, I'm now working, even though I am physically home. So I need to focus on my work and not let life at home pull me XYZ directions and then not get my work done in a timely manner. So that's also a concern. And sometimes you don't know these things about an individual until you actually bring them on board and then you give them clients and so on. So there's always a risk.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because it's a lonely place sometimes. Do you know what I find that? Like although you've got these clients and you're speaking to people, if it can be that you can go like the whole week and you just don't have real interaction if you're just, that's what you do. Like, I definitely work with coaches and that comes up a lot where we will speak about it. And it's like, I really need interaction. I need to get back in the gym almost. I need to go and do like one day.
Right. Because it can feel pretty isolating, of course. And actually that's a big part of why my coaches who work for me, that's a big part of why they like being on the team, because we have coaches meetings every other week. But then also last month, we all met in New York to attend a seminar together. And then we were basically like a little posse, like staying in the same hotel, walking over to the venue, going to lunch together. And that was really fun too. And it can help kind of remind you why you love your job and feel the connection with other people. So it can be really, you can feel very alone if you kind of let it, you stay stuck in your, just at your laptop all day long.
Yeah. I can relate to that.
I'm like, okay, we need to leave the house and do something.
That's it.
Yeah.
Scary
just
sometimes.
see another human. Yeah.
Really. Yeah. But then I'm also that person who can't go and work in another environment. I have to be in this environment. I don't get anything
Right.
done.
Like I can't work at a coffee shop because then I get distracted. And then I'm like, what if I need to go to the bathroom? What do I do with my laptop? Or like, what if the Wi-Fi is not working? What if the Wi-Fi is not fast? And then I would get frustrated. I'm like, I need my home environment. Even when we travel, which we used to do a lot of, I would really struggle with the work from home situation. There were so many times we stayed in Airbnbs where they would advertise high-speed Wi-Fi and it would literally be 1 MB/s speed, like one. Or you do the speed test and it fluctuates between like 0 and 1, 0 and 1. And I'm like, I cannot do anything with like my whole business is online. So then I'd have to go rent like a WeWork space for the day.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, so this is not efficient at all. So as long as you've got good Wi-Fi and good working environment, which I now have a home office in our new house, which is great. I can, get laser focused and blast through my work.
That's it. That's good.
Yeah.
So how's Apotheo? How does it help what you're doing? Is there any like tips, things you do with it?
I would say it removes a lot of the grunt work. One of the things that I value the most in business and in life is efficient. I feel like I've mentioned it a lot. Efficiency and convenience, basically, right? Yeah. And so whatever I can do to make my life more convenient, great. So I don't want to have to be like, oh, great, this is a good check-in. Let me right-click save as and then put it in their folder. And then when I need to remember information about this client, I opened 6 different documents to skim through. I want to be able to go click. Oh, this is the summary of this client.
Yeah.
Oh, let me understand what's going on here. Let me read this person's sign-up form real quick. Oh, it's right here. So it's super user-friendly for the coach. I would like to think it's user-friendly for the client as well. Like they can even go back and look at over their own information too. So it's on both sides. And then it's also very easy for me to see a summary of my entire coaching roster. How many clients of each client type do I have? Where are they located? There's like a map you can see visually, which is, it's just fun to see.
Yeah.
Most of my clients are US based, but we have some international too. And then it's easy to see like, oh, you have these many clients have expiring payments. So make sure you reach out to them. Or you have this many client check-ins, which are submitted in the past day. So make sure you get back to them today. Now these check-ins are overdue because maybe you had like a holiday or something. So like Monday was a national holiday. That's fine. Tuesday, you have to get back to them, all that. It's just so easy to see everything. And it makes it very unlikely that you will miss responding to someone. Emails, you can be like, you open it and then you forget to mark it as unread or something like that. It's very unlikely that will happen. And then you can see all their check-in summary information just all in rows, row after row after row. So I can just skim down and be like, okay, so this is our progress over the past however many months. Okay, now I have a good idea what's going on. Keeping everything in one place, making it easy to use, saving all your information by default makes life easier.
And with the coaches you with the clients you coach, it's women, right? And is there specific things you help them with, or?
Yeah, so vast majority women, although we actually have a couple men as well. So we don't exclude men. It tends to be that our brand tends to cater to mostly women, but every now and then we have a guy who is like, that really resonates with me and I want to work with Coach Natalie or whoever. And we wouldn't stop that. We wouldn't be like, no boys allowed or anything like that. So right now, yeah. And our brand, as I said, has shifted over the years. So I used to focus a lot on fat loss clients, which makes sense. It's a big thing. And nowadays we are now focused more on, we'll help you meet your physique goals. Again, mostly fat loss. But however, we make it very clear that the emphasis is on improving your relationship with food at the same time. So sometimes people are like, I don't have any physique goals. I just want to feel better about myself. In which case we won't submit progress pictures anymore. We won't do any scale weight measurements. We will only focus on specific like health habits, usually eating behavior or exercise related. And then at the same time, we do a lot of like motivational interviewing on the Zoom calls, which again, vital. Can't do that really over written communication as much. Like a conversation might take 5 business days that you can do in 5 minutes over a Zoom call. So it's a big part of why we did that. Sorry. Kelly. Yeah, the mailman dropping something off. Yeah. So people know, the clients you get are in response to the content that you put out there, like how you market yourself, obviously. And lately we put a lot of content out on body image, overcoming like disorder, establishing a healthy relationship with food. And so those are the kinds of clients we get who are interested in improving their body image, improving their relationship with food, while recognizing that it's okay to also have physique goals. But if you have physique goals, we will make sure that we get to a deep understanding of why this particular goal is so important for you. Because a lot of times I feel like people say, oh, this is my goal, but they don't really understand why.
Yeah.
Or when you get to the why, maybe the why is something totally unrelated to what you think is what they really want. So maybe it's like, you ask them, why do you want this? Why do you want this? Why do you want this? And finally they say, oh, it's because my mom would always criticize my body growing up. And we're like, okay, well, it's not the body that you want. It's the approval. You want the approval of your parent. It's like, it can be really deep sometimes.
Yeah.
And then of course there are times too, when they talk about their problems. And then we say, you know what you need is outside the scope of what we can offer you. And then we can refer out then as well. But I'm very happy with the direction that we're moving. And I feel like the work we're doing is more meaningful now.
Yeah.
And I feel good about the work that we're doing and the way in which we're helping people.
Yeah. And because I see some of your content that gets put out there, and I see, and then I feel for how that might have changed over the time period in terms of the messaging that you put through that, and then that influence in the people you work with. Have you got plans for like where you want this to go? Is there like anything that you want to do more with it, or
with my messaging,
or just in terms of the business itself and being able to?
So I would say, obviously we get all of our clients through social media. And so even though I'm not really making a lot of money directly through social media, it's not like every time I post, I make X number of dollars. Obviously that then funnels demand for the coaching business or the products and the other services that I offer. So at this point, there are a lot of different services I have. So that's been great. I really enjoy creating educational content. It's really fun for me. So that's what I spend most of my time doing nowadays. So I shifted away from the one-on-one coaching clients myself. And now most of my time is spent thinking of planning out, filming, editing, posting, then interacting with people who engage with it's a lot, right? It's a lot. And I understand, not everyone loves it. Some people hate it, but I happen to really, really enjoy it. So at least for now, the plan is to continue doing more of that, especially once I finish my PhD, which will hopefully be in about a year from now. We'll see. You never know how timelines go with these things. But I basically want to keep doing what I'm doing. But I feel like as an entrepreneur, I'm very open-minded to changing what I want to do over time, because it's happened a lot, of course. But I think one thing that I've done well with my branding is staying true to like my integrity with my brand. So even though my messaging has shifted and whatnot over the years, I've always been very intentional about shifting my message. So I'm not like one day I'm like, oh, this is how I feel. And the next day I'm like, oh, never mind. I now feel the opposite. Because, we see people doing that a lot. And I'm thinking, okay, I really think things through. So if I'm going to change my messaging, I have to have a very good idea of why is this important to me? And do I want this to be the shift that I want to make? And do I want to be known for this other thing now? And how is this going to change the people who follow me and the people who want to support me? Because that changes over time too, obviously, as a reflection of the content you put out there. So I would probably lose followers who are like super into bodybuilding or super into like obsessed with fat loss, because I don't really talk about that stuff as much anymore. And then I would gain a different kind of following. That's where I am right now. We'll see how things go.
And I know that this question, I know that a lot of people or the coaches in the group will hopefully want to know some of this stuff, but because you touched on the content side of things and the amount of work, even just mentioning it there, that you put into that. Is there like a process that you use for creating these pieces of content? Is there a way you do it?
Very not sophisticated. I use the Notes app on my Apple devices, so my phone and my laptop basically. And I have one pinned note where I have a tentative posting schedule, and then a list of topics that are in progress, some stage of I'm planning it out, or I've filmed it but I haven't edited it, or they need to be posted. And then another list of pending ideas that I've not done anything with. And I also will link different posts, either of my own or of other people, where I get inspiration for other ideas, where I'll be like, oh, do this trend, but make it about this instead. Yeah. Then I'll write down. And I also just text myself ideas all the time.
Oh, really?
And then if I, just this morning, I was scrolling through my own texts to myself, being like, oh, I need to find this other TikTok that I'm trying to respond to. And it was from 3 weeks ago. So I was scrolling, and then I find it, and then I do that. So honestly, I've used more organized systems before, where I have a whole Google spreadsheet and it's color coded by topic and XYZ. And there was also a time when I would print out, I'd have a physical printout of a social media calendar. And then I would write down the topic, I'd plan everything out 2-3 weeks in advance, and I have it color coded and everything. And I'd be like, oh, I haven't done a training post in a while, so let me put a red sticker here so I can think about whatever. I don't need any of that. It doesn't have to be that straightforward. But I will say also, I want to mention that you do not need to be a social media fiend to have a full client roster of as a coach. They're two different things.
Yeah.
Right. I'm creating content primarily because I enjoy it. Nowadays, I also get paid partnership deals with other brands who pay me to post content, and posting the content regularly is what helps me get those deals. Yeah. But also I just really love social media. I have a friend who uses Apotheo who doesn't really post on social media, and he's got a waiting list for months and months. And that is fine. And he knows he's not trying to be a social media guru or anything like that. He just likes to coach.
Yeah.
So you do, I had a full roster of clients back when I had 900 followers on Instagram. Yeah. So I really want to emphasize there's no direct correlation between how many followers you have, or how often you're posting, and how many clients you get at all.
Yeah.
So they're two different, but they can have some overlap, but they're different.
Yeah, absolutely. They are, two different roles, aren't they? But yeah, like you say, they support each other, but you don't necessarily need to be doing this to have that success there. Because
correct.
That's really interesting about hearing about your structure, because again, I think people maybe get so into their head sometimes that I've got to have this perfect schedule and I need to batch create this and film and do this.
Absolutely not. Oh, also, I would say I have people who ask me questions about creating content, and I can tell that they are their own bottleneck, because they're still on, well, I don't have the right camera or the right lighting setup or the right audio, video, I have I have multiple friends who are content creators. And one person in particular, of all my friends, she has over 1 million followers on just about every platform, every social media platform. And she films everything on her iPhone 11 in selfie mode with no microphone, nothing, no ring light, nothing. And so I'm like, you guys are a lot of people, I'm like, you guys are way overthinking this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do not need to have sophisticated equipment. You just need to have a good message. And guess what? As an entrepreneur, hopefully you guys are all, embodying growth mindset. You get better over time. Yeah. So just put your content out there. And even if you feel like it's not the best caliber video, audio, whatever, who cares? Do it again in 6 months. Do the same topic in 6 months with better, because you will have learned by then. The more you just keep putting stuff out there. And I would say, going back to coaching, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like you don't have all the answers, the only way you're going to get better is to practice and do the thing. And you get better with time with practice. And 6 months from now, 1 month, 1 year from now, you will be coaching differently, as you should, because you will be better at that point.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to take the action. That's the step to do. And a lot of people want to put these things in front of that action, almost like to stall it or maybe there's bigger things there to unpick.
Right. Or they'll spend $10,000 on the latest technology, but then they haven't worked on their speaking skills, or their message isn't very strong, or they're not showing up. You know, sometimes people like they have a camera on them, and all of a sudden their personality like disappears when there's a camera, but when they're like recording and then like, hello, my name is, you know, that happens a lot too. And honestly, that still happens to me sometimes. And I'd much rather someone just be on their smartphone in selfie mode, being themselves. That's what I prefer to see. So yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. No, it's great. It's great to get that insight from you as well, and a really important message for people to hear that as well. In terms of where coaches or anyone can come find out more about you, is there the best place for them to go?
I'm very easy to find. My name is Sohee Fit across every platform. My website, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. What else is there? YouTube, Twitter, everything is Sohee Fit. I would say I'm most active on Instagram. That's my main platform. So I am half decent at responding to DMs. But for serious inquiries, I would say use the contact form on my site. Otherwise, if you would just want to consume my content, you know where to find me.
Yeah, amazing. Awesome. Thank you for this.
My pleasure.
Great to get insight into that. And I will, the recording gets sent off. I think then gets dropped into the group. I think it gets chopped up into little bits as well for social media.
Very cool. Yeah, awesome.
Thank you. Let me press stop on that before I forget.